The sudden snap of flesh meeting flesh pierced through the supermarket's constant murmur. A girl, perhaps around 15, clad in a worn hoodie and jeans, staggered back, her hands instinctively reaching for her cheek. A carton of eggs shattered upon the unforgiving tile floor. Cans clattered and tumbled beneath the shelves, their metallic echoes filling the air. A loaf of bread whirled off like a ball sent flying by a swift kick. The brute, with a thick neck and a buzz cut, loomed above her, his arms adorned with garish tattoos, chest rising and falling with furious breaths. "Do you really believe you can collide with me and not offer an apology?" he barked, his voice cutting through the frigid air. The girl huddled against the bottom shelf, desperately gathering her scattered groceries with shaking hands. Tears threatened to spill, but she bit her lip, fighting back the urge to cry. The crowd remained motionless. Mothers with strollers, retired couples, teenagers clutched their energy drinks, a silence enveloping the scene. No one stirred. No one uttered a word. Several phones were raised, yet each remained firmly in its spot, feigning ignorance, as if the situation did not concern them. At the far end of aisle 6, casually propped against the magazine rack, was Jason Statham, an oversized dark gray t-shirt draped effortlessly over his frame. Baggy cargo pants skimmed the tops of well-worn sneakers. His hands rested nonchalantly in his pockets, his posture exuding a sense of indifference. Yet his eyes, those piercing eyes, were like blades. They tracked every motion, assessing, chilling. The thug was far from done. With a contemptuous grin, he sent a kick towards the scattered groceries, watching as a bag of apples careened across the gleaming floor. "You foolish little brat," he growled, advancing with a threatening step. His hand rose once more, fingers clenched into a tight fist. The girl recoiled instinctively, shielding her head, murmuring something inaudible to anyone but herself. The atmosphere thickened with tension. Shoppers cast hurried, anxious looks at one another. A low, persistent hum of unease pulsed beneath the stark fluorescent glow. Then a solitary, measured step reverberated through the aisle. The thug pivoted slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing his face for just an instant. Jason Statham had ceased to lean. He was now striding forward, his movements fluid and purposeful, thoughtful, quiet, intentional. The soft drape of his t-shirt danced with each movement. His strides were unapologetic. His gaze remained steadfast. First step, second step, third. The thug's smirk wavered momentarily. The girl raised her gaze from her crouched position, her eyes wide with surprise. She caught a glimpse of the silent figure approaching, reminiscent of an impending tempest. Jason halted just shy of the scuffed yellow line that marked the boundary between the checkout lanes and the aisles. A palpable stillness enveloped the air. The crowd appeared to collectively suspend its breath. The thug's fist hung suspended in the air, caught in a moment of uncertainty. And Jason continued to gaze, unblinking, unyielding, relentless, as if a glacier were inching forward. Inescapable, irreversible. The world teetered on the brink, with mere moments remaining before it fractured beyond repair. Before we move forward, be sure to like and subscribe to witness Jason Statham's thrilling confrontation with the thug bullies, and share your location in the comments. The supermarket was unremarkable, a mid-sized suburban chain packed with an overwhelming array of products and insufficient room to navigate. Fluorescent lights hummed above, illuminating the cracked linoleum floors with a stark, clinical brightness. Aisles brimmed with vibrant cereal boxes, bargain soda, and worn sale signs, haphazardly affixed to the shelves. The subtle aroma of bleach and the sharp tang of freezer burn hung in the air, intertwining uneasily with the warm scent of freshly baked bread wafting from aisle 4. It was Saturday afternoon, the height of the weekend frenzy. Families navigated the chaos of children. Elderly couples exchanged quiet disputes over coupons. Teenagers shuffled along, tethered to their screens. The checkout line extended so far back that it nearly coiled into the frozen food aisle. A sea of oblivious shoppers surrounded him. Yet, amidst the chaos, one figure remained acutely aware: Jason Statham. He slipped inside, seeking a swift escape with just a loaf of bread, a few eggs, and perhaps a respectable bottle of water. Fresh from a grueling filming schedule, he craved nothing more than to merge into the background, to remain unseen, and to catch his breath for a fleeting moment. Clad in a dark gray, oversized t-shirt that draped loosely over his slender form, he wore baggy black cargo pants and scuffed sneakers that murmured rather than thundered. Without shades, without a hat, without an entourage, only Jason, silent, alone. He had already noticed the thug before the slap ever connected. The man was hard to overlook. In his early 20s, thick-necked and stocky, he bore a chaotic array of poor tattoos that peeked out from beneath a tattered tank top. His jeans hung low, revealing boxers adorned with skulls. One arm held a cheap bottle of whiskey, still sealed but clearly intended for later. The thug swaggered down the canned goods aisle as if he owned the place, brushing past mothers and elderly men without offering a single word of apology. His voice, piercing and nasal, cut through the ambient music that filled the air. "Respect, man. Ain't nobody got respect no more?" he shouted, swinging his bottle perilously close to a toddler who whimpered and clung to his mother's leg. Jason observed everything. It wasn't merely the yelling. It wasn't solely the nonchalant intimidation, the rhythm, the quest, the desire for a focus. Indeed, he stumbled upon her. The girl appeared to be no older than 14. She donned a yellow hoodie that hung loosely on her frame, paired with skinny jeans and worn-out white sneakers, their toes marked by countless adventures. Her hair was gathered into a haphazard ponytail. One hand grasped a wrinkled grocery list, while the other held a faded canvas tote, heavy with cans of soup and a loaf of bread. She was solitary. Jason would later discover that her mother lay bedridden at home, afflicted by a fever. The girl had ventured out alone, striving to do something noble, something responsible. Yet, for her efforts, she was on the brink of humiliation. From afar, Jason observed as the thug crashed into her with intent, sending the tote flying from her grasp. Cans tumbled across the ground. The bread was crushed beneath the boot. The girl quickly stooped to collect her belongings, murmuring a gentle apology. The thug loomed above her, a sneer etched on his face. "You disrespect me. You learn your lesson?" he growled, before unleashing a slap that echoed throughout the store. Jason's jaw clenched. His breath became deliberate, almost robotic in its cadence. A solitary tap of his sneaker against the tile, gentle and unremarked, anchored his equilibrium. His instincts flickered to life, icy and precise beneath his skin. He remained still for the moment. Yet, the instant the thug lifted his fist once more, it would be too late to intervene. The crowd remained blissfully unaware. Yet, the specter of violence loomed large, an inevitability that thickened the air with tension. The thug loomed over the girl, his chest rising and falling with intensity. His hand remained suspended in the air, relishing the palpable fear emanating from her small, crumpled figure. "You think you can just bump into me and say sorry?" he barked, his voice ricocheting off the metal shelves and reverberating through the frozen foods aisle. "You insignificant souls often overestimate your worth." His words cut through the atmosphere with a precision that rivaled any physical blow. Jason Statham stood motionless by the magazine stand, his stance relaxed, one foot casually crossed over the other, yet his gaze remained unwavering, unblinking. His entire form was a tightly wound spring beneath his relaxed attire. The thug lowered himself further, encroaching upon the girl's intimate bubble. His breath, heavy with the acrid odor of low-grade energy drinks, brushed against her face as he mocked her. "Where's your mommy, huh?" he sneered. "Bet she's at home too busy getting high to raise you right." The girl shook her head desperately, her trembling hands struggling to gather the scattered groceries. Her yellow hoodie gathered around her shoulders as she crouched down, her petite figure curling inward. "You deaf or just stupid?" he barked, his voice rising. A few onlookers recoiled. A woman by the dairy section covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes wide with shock. A man near the checkout line whispered to himself that someone ought to intervene, yet he remained frozen, his grip tight on the handle of his shopping cart. Meanwhile, phones began to lift, but not for the purpose of summoning assistance. It was a moment to capture. Jason observed everything, meticulously noting each detail. The thug's foot placement, precariously unsteady. The slick expanse of tile near the meat section, a threshold to uncertainty. The closest exits, obstructed by carts, shelves, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The girl dabbed at her tears, leaving a trail of sorrow across her cheeks. She instinctively retreated across the floor, maneuvering on her hands and heels like a crab. Yet this only seemed to fuel the thug's aggression. He seized her wrist with a grip that made her whimper, yanking her back toward him. "You gonna cry now, princess?" he taunted. He lifted his other hand with a deliberate slowness, a flourish that commanded the attention of the entire supermarket. He craved an audience. He yearned for their trepidation. Jason could see it in the thug's eyes, that ugly, infectious high that bullies get when they realize no one will intervene. For a fleeting moment, time itself appeared to slow down. The crowd collectively held its breath. The thug's hand drew back, veins straining against his forearm. The girl clenched her eyes tight, using her free arm to protect her head. And Jason's foot detached from the wall, his weight shifting with purpose. The billowing fabric of his oversized t-shirt danced gently as he took his initial step forward. Quiet, calculated, and menacing, just 10 feet apart, yet unseen by all except for the thug, who remained blissfully unaware of his presence. Jason's breath fell into a measured cadence, reminiscent of a hunter poised for the strike. Nearby, a woman by the bakery murmured urgently, urging action. Yet her voice faltered, fragile and ineffective. The thug curled his lip in disdain, surveying the crowd of unmoving expressions. "Just as I suspected," he scoffed. "Pack of cowards." He glanced back at the girl. "You ought to be thankful that anyone is even acknowledging your existence," he snarled. "A worthless piece of trash like you isn't even deserving of the dirt on my boots." His words seared with a heat more intense than the blow he threatened. The girl trembled, her chest rising and falling in ragged, fractured sobs. She drew in closer, clutching the canvas tote to her heart as if it were a protective barrier. A can of soup tumbled from her bag, gently tapping against Jason's scuffed sneaker. He glanced down at it, then lifted his gaze. He smiled, a slow, razor-thin smile that never reached his eyes. It was a smile that, had the thug caught sight of it, would have sent him fleeing. Yet, intoxicated by the false sense of power, the thug lifted his hand even higher. The overhead fluorescent light shimmered against the silver chain encircling his robust wrist as he readied himself to strike. Jason shifted once more, now swifter and soundless, narrowing the gap. Just 2 more steps and he would be within reach. Yet, amidst the bustling crowd, no one seemed to take notice. Only the elderly man, hunched by the greeting cards, peered through his thick glasses and murmured to his wife, "That's Jason Statham." But alas, the moment for caution had passed. It was too late for phones, too late for timid prayers. Jason was already in motion, and the thug, the fool who believed the world would stand idly by as he brutalized a child, was about to discover just how mistaken he truly was. The thug's hand hung suspended in the air when Jason slipped into his shadow. Without a moment's hesitation, Jason emerged fully into the light. He placed his small shopping basket on the tile with a soft thud, a sound so subtle yet so intentional that it resonated more powerfully than a gunshot. Instantly, every head in the frozen supermarket turned toward him, their previous fears momentarily eclipsed by a surge of electric curiosity. Jason's oversized gray t-shirt draped loosely over baggy cargo pants, rendering him nearly casual, nearly unnoticed, until one caught sight of his eyes. Those cold, razor-sharp eyes. "Hey, tough guy," Jason said, his voice cutting through the heavy silence like a knife. "Do you perceive yourself as a formidable figure?" It was neither a shout nor a threat. It was the stillness preceding a tempest. The thug pivoted, his grip tightening around the quaking girl's wrist. His head snapped up, eyes wide with surprise. In that fleeting moment, a heartbeat's pause, confusion flickered across his face. Then came the laughter. The thug emitted a harsh, grating sound, reminiscent of a hyena sensing vulnerability. "What's this?" he jeered, gesturing with a thumb toward Jason for all to witness. "Grandpa aspires to don the mantle of a hero." A few anxious laughs fluttered through the gathering. Shoppers adjusted their positions, edging nearer yet maintaining a cautious distance. "Text, you ought to mind your own affairs, old man," the thug taunted, letting the girl drop unceremoniously to the floor, where she landed with a muted grunt. "Before you end up breaking a hip." Jason remained steadfast, his posture unwavering. His arms dangled relaxed at his sides. His knees were slightly bent, casual, yet poised to spring like a coiled spring. He tilted his head, observing the thug with the keen gaze of a lion sizing up a cornered, foolish jackal. "Are you really going to make your next move in front of an audience?" Jason inquired with a chilling detachment. His words lingered in the atmosphere, thick and suffocating, like a slow-burning fuse. The thug grinned, his confidence swelling even further. "Text, I ain't scared of no has-been," he declared, rolling his shoulders and assuming a confrontational stance. He thrust a thick finger toward Jason's chest, stopping just short of contact. "You got a problem, Grandpa, huh? You want to make it your problem?" Jason's eyes flickered, the sole indication of his brewing response. Throughout the supermarket, a hoarse whisper floated through the air, declaring, "That's Jason Statham." The name spread like wildfire, igniting a chorus of murmurs that grew increasingly fervent. Phones rose higher, capturing the moment as shoppers began to gather in a broader semicircle, the tension palpable in the air. The thug, either unaware or simply too foolish to grasp the impending threat, flexed his arms in a display of false bravado. "You planning to lecture me, tough guy? Or are you just going to?" His words hung in the air, unfinished. Jason subtly shifted his weight, a movement so slight it could have gone unnoticed. Yet it prompted the thug to instinctively lean back, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. Jason's voice lowered further as he spoke again. "Final notice." 3 words, conveyed with calmness, devoid of rage, merely a precise, unyielding conclusion. The thug chuckled once more, yet this time the laughter frayed at the seams. "You are nothing but—" Jason shifted. Flash. Before the thug could even register the movement, Jason was within his defenses, so near that the thug caught the scent of fabric softener clinging to Jason's freshly laundered shirt. With a swift motion, Jason's hand darted out, effortlessly swatting the thug's wrist aside as if it were a mere annoyance. The thug took a step back, eyes wide with disbelief. Meanwhile, Jason remained composed and unruffled. Approach. He is still presented with a choice. He is still afforded an opportunity. The thug's face flushed crimson, humiliation washing over him as he stood before the onlookers. He clenched his fists tightly, the sound of cracking knuckles echoing in the tense air. "You've just made your final error, old man," he snarled, his voice quaking with a mix of fury and escalating dread. Jason tilted his head once more, scrutinizing him intently. "Do you truly desire this?" Jason murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, meant solely for the thug's ears. "No cameras, no second chances." The thug let out a ferocious roar and lunged forward. The supermarket held its breath in unison. Jason's body remained almost imperceptibly still. Only a breath, a mere ripple coursing through his muscles. Yet the true tempest was on the verge of unleashing. The thug's roar reverberated through the supermarket, jolting shoppers into action. In an instant, he lunged at Jason, a frenzied shove intended to send him sprawling. Yet Jason, he merely pivoted, effortlessly sidestepping the attack, as one might dodge a drifting leaf. The thug staggered by, bracing himself against a precarious tower of soup cans that toppled with a resounding clang. A wave of tension swept through the onlookers. Gasps echoed in the air. A boy by the freezer section leaned in, his voice a hushed urgency. "Wait, is that Jason Statham?" Another woman gripped her shopping cart with intensity, murmuring to her friend, "No way, it must be him." Phones lifted higher into the air. A few began to record openly at this moment. The thug pivoted, his face flushed and seething with indignation. "You think you're amusing?" he growled, his fists clenched so tightly that the tattoos on his knuckles twisted grotesquely. Jason remained silent, He remained relaxed, inhaling steadily, observing each subtle movement, every taut sinew. The thug advanced, inflating his chest like a proud bird facing imminent danger. "You believe you can simply enter this space?" The thug sneered. "And show me disrespect before all these witnesses?" The onlookers recoiled against the shelves. An elderly man by the cash registers shook his head and murmured, "This fool has no idea what he's just begun." The thug prodded Jason's chest with a finger, this time making contact, a calculated provocation. "You know who I am?" he growled. Jason's jaw tightened momentarily. His hands remained relaxed at his sides. "I am the one in charge of this store," the thug roared, his voice faltering as he scanned the surroundings, yearning for support that would not materialize. "This floor is mine. These people are mine." Shoppers cast sidelong looks at one another. Laughter had vanished, replaced by an unsettling silence. Smiles were nowhere to be found. They lingered in a state of anticipation, poised for what was to come. Jason moved forward with a deliberate, unhurried step. The thug instinctively recoiled half a step, a blunder he swiftly attempted to mask with a crescendo of shouting. "You better walk away, old man," he bellowed, his voice cracking once more. "Consider this a forewarning. I will dismantle you. I will dismantle anyone who dares to challenge me." Jason tilted his head slightly, observing the thug with the discerning gaze of a seasoned fighter assessing an amateur's clumsy jabs. Then, in a voice that was quiet yet almost tender, Jason began to speak. "You will depart from this floor tonight." A moment, just sufficient for the words to resonate. Yet not in a state of stillness. The words struck with the force of a hammer. Sharp gasps reverberated through the supermarket. The thug blinked in surprise. For the first time, a glimmer of uncertainty danced in his eyes. He swiftly cloaked it with a veil of anger. "Big words, Grandpa," he snapped, clenching his fists tightly. "Let us observe if your bones can support their claims." Jason's nostrils flared, a singular indication of what was about to unfold. The atmosphere trembled with an unsettling force. The throng sensed it as well. Individuals began to retreat, leaving their carts behind, groceries forsaken in the chaos. Some crouched behind shelves. The atmosphere thickened, charged with tension, as if a thunderstorm were on the verge of unleashing its fury. Jason flexed his fingers, a subtle yet deliberate movement. His feet found their place in a fighter's stance, weight-balanced, relaxed yet ready to strike. The thug flashed a predatory grin, oblivious to the fact that Jason had already sealed the fate of this confrontation before it even started. He simply had not revealed it yet. The thug emitted a low growl, a sound that straddled the line between rage and trepidation, and unleashed a wide, sweeping haymaker aimed directly at Jason's head. It was unrefined. It was a last-ditch effort. Jason shifted with a fluid grace, anticipating the punch before it completed its trajectory. He lowered his shoulder, allowing the fist to sail harmlessly above him, and slipped into the thug's guard with an unsettling composure. Thud! Jason's elbow surged upward, swift and fierce, striking with precision against the thug's vulnerable ribs. The sound of the impact echoed sharply in the air. The thug inhaled sharply, his chest twisting in an involuntary motion. He stumbled. Before he could regain his footing, Jason's hands shot upward, striking the thug's nose with precision. With a resounding smack, a wet crunch echoed through the space. Blood splattered across the aisle. The thug staggered backward, one hand clutching his broken nose, the other flailing in a desperate attempt to steady himself. A sharp gasp rippled through the crowd, with some individuals instinctively pulling away from the brutality of the blows. A voice near the dairy section murmured, "Oh my God, he's not acting." Yet the thug was far from finished. Fueled by fury rather than reason, he charged toward a shopping cart left unattended by the checkout lane. Seizing it with both hands, he barreled toward Jason, head lowered, intent on plowing through him like a living projectile. Jason stood his ground, unyielding. He adjusted his position with a quiet precision, allowing the thug to charge at him like an unstoppable force. In a heartbeat, Jason sidestepped, delivering a calculated kick to the thug's advancing knee. Crack, the leg twisted unnaturally inward. The cart swerved off its path. Jason spun, quick and low, leveraging his hip and thigh to send the cart careening sideways with a jarring thud. It plummeted to the ground, wheels whirling in a chaotic frenzy. The thug, teetering and unsteady, attempted to regain his footing. He never had the opportunity. With a swift motion, Jason seized the man by the collar and belt, launching him backward with the force of a freight train into a towering shelf brimming with canned goods. The collision sent shockwaves through the entire structure. Soup cans cascaded down like a torrential downpour, pummeling the thug as he collapsed to the floor in a disheveled heap. The air was thick with a palpable tension, not emanating from the crowd, but rather from the heap of defeated thugs sprawled beneath the cans. Jason moved forward with unwavering resolve. The thug, disoriented and bruised, yet still foolishly determined, surged upward in a desperate attempt to seize Jason's legs. It was a poor choice. Jason confronted him with a swift arm trap, securing one of the thug's limbs firmly against his own chest. The thug struggled in vain. Jason thrust his forehead forward, a swift, fierce, and merciless strike against the thug's face. Crunch. Another nose shattered, perhaps the cheekbone as well. The thug slumped in Jason's hold, his knees trembling. Jason had more to deliver. With a firm grip on the thug's trapped wrist, he executed a swift, practiced twist. Up it went. The dislocation echoed with a nauseating, fleshy crack. The thug emitted a desperate, high-pitched howl, a sound that abruptly ceased mid-cry. Jason relinquished his grip on the mangled wrist, watching as the thug staggered back, nursing his shattered arm. Yet Jason was already in motion. He advanced, his hips twisting with purpose, and unleashed a thunderous body shot, a vicious right hook, directly into the thug's liver. Whomp! The thug's body convulsed. He emitted a strangled sound, a blend of cough and sob, before he fell. Bent over like damp fabric, he crumpled to the sticky supermarket floor, twitching and gasping for air that eluded him. The crowd remained motionless for a brief moment, quiet, contemplating. Then, from the vicinity of the entrance, a solitary clap echoed. Then came another, then yet another, and soon it began to spread, scattered. Stunned applause resonated through the supermarket. It was not loud, nor wild, but rather raw, genuine, and reverent. A man near the bread aisle shook his head in awe. "That was the coldest thing I've ever seen," he muttered. Jason lingered over the thug's shattered form for a moment longer. He did not revel in his victory. He did not strike a pose. Instead, he subtly shifted his oversized t-shirt, exuding a calm and methodical demeanor, before turning away without a backward glance. The girl remained on the floor, her eyes wide with a mix of wonder and fear as she observed him. Jason knelt beside her for a moment. "You all right, love?" he inquired, his voice soft yet gentle. She nodded vigorously, dabbing at her tear-streaked cheeks. Jason extended his hand, assisting her to rise with a tender touch. All around them, the supermarket appeared to exhale, coming back to life. Amidst the bustling crowd, voices mingled and phones flickered to life. Yet Jason remained unfazed. With a casual flick of his wrists to shake off the dust, he retrieved his shopping basket from its resting place and strolled away, indifferent to the commotion around him. The thug lay in a shattered pile, moaning and convulsing beneath a toppled tower of soup cans. He coughed, a wet sound, curling inward like a creature in distress. His body shook as he attempted to drag himself away. One arm hung limply at his side, the wrist dangling in a grotesque manner, while blood streamed from his nose, staining his shirt. With each agonizing inch he pulled himself forward, he left a pitiful trail on the polished supermarket floor. A whimper escaped him, an ugly, broken sound that echoed his suffering. "Please, please," he gasped, his voice cracking hoarsely. "Enough. I'm finished. Just stop. Do not inflict pain upon me." Jason remained motionless, a silent observer, his arms relaxed, his gaze icy. The crowd expanded, phones still capturing the moment, whispers flowing like aftershocks through the aisles. Two security guards finally pushed through the entrance, one young and the other older and heavier. They hurried toward the scene, their hands twitching near their radios. Initially, their gazes fixed on Jason, assessing him as the clear suspect. The thug sprawled on the floor bore blood on his face, while Jason remained unscathed. Yet, before the guards could utter a word, a chorus of voices erupted from the crowd in unison. He was defending her. That man, the brute, had struck that girl. Twice, she found herself rescued by Jason Statham. He was not the instigator of any trouble. The security guards stood motionless. The younger one blinked, finally recognizing Jason. His mouth opened and closed, as if recalling precisely who he was up against. Jason finally moved. Slowly, with an air of ease, he offered no words to the security personnel. He turned back to the girl, who stood a few feet away, still quaking from the shock. Her lip bore a split, a crimson mark blossoming across her cheek. She wrapped her arms around herself, holding on as if she wished to vanish into thin air. Jason lowered himself to her eye level, the tumult of the store receding into the background. From his pocket, he retrieved a small, unopened bottle of water from his basket. With a gentle motion, he offered it to her. "Here," he murmured softly. "Small sips. Slow." The girl nodded, her hands trembling as she took it. Jason rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Steady yet gentle. Her knees threatened to give way, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Tears brimmed in her eyes once more, but this time they were not solely born of fear. This time, they reflected a deeper sense of gratitude and relief. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jason offered a faint smile, one that failed to illuminate his eyes. He leaned in just a bit closer. His voice dropped to a whisper, meant solely for her ears. "Next time, love." He gently tapped his chest with 2 fingers. "Simply raise your voice. There will be someone who listens." She gulped, her head bobbing in agreement. Jason tousled her hair lightly, a relaxed, almost paternal gesture, before straightening up. The crowd instinctively made way for him. Not a single person requested a selfie. No one dared to impede his progress. He strode past the security guards, who, with a prudent decision, stepped aside and reclaimed his half-full shopping basket, as nonchalantly as if he were merely grabbing a loaf of bread. Jason adjusted the strap of the basket over his wrist, tugged at the hem of his oversized gray t-shirt, and without a second glance at the incapacitated thug on the floor, continued on his way. He exited the store quietly. No theatrics, no bravado. Silent power carved a crater in its wake. Behind him, the girl clutched the water bottle to her chest, her gaze fixed on Jason until he vanished through the automatic doors. The supermarket, bruised and battered, transformed, hummed in the aftermath of a man who had reminded all that true heroes do not seek the spotlight. They move with purpose, then vanish. By the moment Jason's boots make contact with the parking lot asphalt, the internet is ablaze with activity. Within the supermarket, a handful of shoppers hurriedly share their recordings. Every clip captured a unique perspective. A trembling phone video of the initial savage slap. A crisp, breath-stealing image of Jason entering the scene. A side view immortalizes the low kick, the cart flip, and the thug's chaotic descent into the shelves. In mere moments, the videos inundated TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as if a dam had shattered. Hashtag Statham saves. Hashtag supermarket hero. Hashtag real-life action hero. Hashtag justice served. Jason versus thug. Protect our girls. All erupted into